The silence was wrong. Ambassador Wren of the Vasari noticed it the moment his transport pod docked at Station Lumina. The corridors leading to the council chamber usually echoed with human voices, laughing, arguing, greeting everyone they passed. Humans never walked quietly. They filled spaces with their presence, their energy, their relentless need to connect. Today, nothing. Wren's translucent fins rippled with unease as he floated toward the great chamber. His species had evolved in the deep oceans of Vos Prime, and they had learned to trust the currents of sound. Something fundamental had shifted in the station's rhythm. The council chamber doors parted, revealing the vast circular space where 47 species gathered to shape galactic policy. Crystalline walls shifted from calm blue to anxious yellow as delegates filed in. Wren took his place among the Vasari contingent and immediately looked toward the human section. Empty, not just unoccupied, stripped bare. The holographic nameplate that once displayed Terran Collective had been removed. The chairs sat in perfect alignment as if no one had ever used them. Even the small touches humans always added, a potted plant from Earth, photographs of their families, a strange banner they called a flag, all gone. Arbiter Sala, a massive insectoid being whose carapace glittered with ceremonial metals, struck her staff against the floor. The sound rang through the chamber. This session shall commence. Roll call proceeds. Species answered in turn. The Kelmathi, masters of energy manipulation. The Drathan, scaled warriors who had learned diplomacy. The Morvaki, bioluminescent beings who communicated through light patterns. One by one, 46 voices confirmed their presence. Terran Collective. Silence. Arbiter Sala's compound eyes scanned the empty section. Terran Collective, acknowledge. Nothing. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Drathan delegate leaned toward his aide and whispered something dismissive. The Morvaki representative's patches flickered with amusement. Humans were always dramatic about something. But Wren felt cold. Perhaps their communication systems have failed, suggested the Kelmathi delegate, his voice crackling with barely concealed irritation. They rely on outdated technology. Wren wanted to correct him. Human technology was not outdated. It was simply different, built to be repaired by anyone rather than replaced by specialists, but he held his tongue. Arbiter Sala dispatched a courier probe to the human embassy on the station. The chamber waited in uncomfortable silence. Wren watched the other delegates shift in their seats, checking personal devices, already dismissing the absence as a minor inconvenience. The probe returned in 4 minutes. The Terran embassy is vacant, Arbiter Sala announced. Sealed and cleaned, no personnel remain. Now the murmurs grew louder. Wren raised a fin, requesting permission to speak. Sala granted it with a gesture. I volunteer to investigate further. With the Council's permission, I will access station records regarding human activity. Permission was granted with minimal discussion. No one else wanted the task. What Wren discovered over the next 3 hours turned his confusion into dread. Human merchant vessels had departed 6 cycles ago. Every single one. They left no cargo behind, collected no debts, filed no complaints. Their medical volunteers had withdrawn from 3 active relief missions, including one on a Vasari colony world where children were dying from a treatable disease. Human engineers had walked away from infrastructure projects mid-construction, leaving tools and materials behind but taking all personnel. No warnings, no demands, no explanations. Wren tried direct communication with Earth. The Sol system had been humanity's home for their entire history. Surely someone there would answer. Every frequency returned the same automated message. The Terran Collective thanks you for your communication. We are currently unavailable. Please do not attempt further contact at this time. He checked the jump gate logs. Human traffic through the Sol gate had ceased entirely. Ships could still travel there in theory, but the journey without gate assistance would take months. Wren returned to the council chamber as the session concluded. Most delegates had already left. treating the human absence as a scheduling inconvenience. The Drathan delegate was complaining about a delayed trade agreement. The Morvaki representative had already forgotten the empty chairs. Arbiter Sala remained at her podium, her ancient eyes studying Ren as he approached. "What did you find, Ambassador?" "They are gone, all of them. Every human in Council space has returned to Sol system." "Why?" Ren had no answer. He stood alone in the empty chamber after Sala departed. The crystalline walls had faded to gray, no strong emotions left to reflect. He stared at the vacant human section and tried to remember the last time he had spoken to their delegate. Her name was Rita. She had gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that deepened when she smiled. She had served on the council for 20 cycles, longer than most humans lived in such positions. The last time Ren saw her, she had looked tired, not physically tired, something deeper. She had proposed a resolution for joint environmental research. The council had rejected it without serious debate. Ren had voted against it. He could not remember why. Now he stood in the silence that Rita had left behind, and he wondered what else he had failed to notice. How many times had humans asked for something, anything, only to be dismissed? How many times had they smiled through rejection and returned the next cycle to help anyway? The station hummed around him, systems functioning perfectly. Human engineers had designed those systems. Human technicians had maintained them. Ren wondered how long that would last. The first warning light appeared on a Tuesday, a human word that Chief Engineer Borak had learned from the technicians who built his relay station. He did not understand why humans divided time into named segments. The Kelmathi measured existence in energy cycles, clean and mathematical. But humans insisted on their Tuesdays and their weekends and their coffee breaks. And since they had constructed Relay Station 14, everyone who worked there adopted their strange customs. Now those humans were gone, and the warning light blinked red in a language Borak could not read. "What does it say?" he demanded. His assistant, a young Kelmathi whose energy field still flickered with inexperience, consulted the translation database. "Biological computing matrix requires recalibration. Human authorization needed." Borak stared at the console. "Override it." "I cannot. The system requires human biometric confirmation." "Then find the manual override." 3 hours later, Borak discovered that human engineers had not included a manual override. They had designed the system assuming humans would always be present to maintain it. Why would they assume otherwise? Humans were everywhere. Humans were always willing to help. The relay station went dark 6 cycles later. Across the galaxy, similar scenes unfolded. On Vas, Prime Ambassador Ren received word that the Crimson Plague had returned. The disease attacked Vasari respiratory membranes, filling their bodies with fluid until they drowned in open air. 40 cycles ago, human doctors had arrived with a treatment, a complex compound that required precise manufacturing. They had never shared the formula. They had simply promised to provide it whenever needed. "Contact the Human Pharmaceutical Division," Ren ordered. "Ambassador, there is no Human Pharmaceutical Division. They have all returned to Sol system." "Then find the formula." No one could find it. Human medical records had been stored on human servers, maintained by human technicians, accessible only through human security protocols. The data existed somewhere in the void, locked behind walls that no Vasari could breach. Children began dying within the week. The Drathan homeworld faced a different crisis. Their soil had always been harsh, barely capable of supporting life. Human agricultural specialists had arrived generations ago with modified seeds, crops designed to thrive in hostile conditions. The Drathan had accepted the gift without question. Why learn the science when humans would always be there to adjust the formulas each season? Planting season arrived, the humans did not. Drathan farmers scattered seeds that had worked perfectly for 50 cycles. The crops withered in the ground. Without human biotechnicians to calibrate the genetic modifications, the plants could not adapt to that year's soil composition. Famine crept across a world of 2 billion. Arbiter Sala convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber hummed with fear and anger, emotions the crystalline walls reflected in violent shades of red and orange. "This is sabotage," the Drathan delegate snarled. "Humans planned this dependency. They made us weak so they could control us." "Evidence," Arbiter Sala demanded. "The evidence is obvious. They inserted themselves into every critical system. They made themselves indispensable. Now they hold the galaxy hostage." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Wren stood slowly. His fins had lost their usual luminescence. He had not slept in 4 cycles. "I have reviewed the records," he said quietly. 300 cycles of council archives, every resolution, every vote, every petition. And in 312 cycles of membership, humanity. Proposed 847 resolutions, requests for collaborative research, offers to share technology, proposals for joint medical facilities, programs to train other species in human techniques. Wren paused. The chamber had fallen silent. The council rejected 831 of them. No one spoke. "Humans did not make us dependent," Wren continued. "We made ourselves dependent. When they offered to teach, we said we were too busy. When they asked for partnership, we said we did not need it. When they requested resources for their own worlds, we told them to solve their problems themselves. And through it all, they kept helping, they kept volunteering, they kept showing up." The Morvaki delegates' bioluminescent patches flickered erratically, the equivalent of nervous fidgeting. "I remember making jokes about human stubbornness," he admitted. "We all did. They were so eager, so desperate to be useful, we thought it was pathetic." "They were not desperate," Wren said. "They were generous, and we exploited that generosity until they had nothing left to give." The Drathan delegate slammed his fist against his console. "Then what do you suggest? We cannot eat apologies. We cannot cure plague with regret." Wren had no answer. Arbiter Sala dismissed the session early. The delegates filed out in silence, each carrying the weight of a realization they had spent centuries avoiding. The Morvaki delegate approached Wren in the corridor. "I cannot remember the last time I thanked a human for anything." His lights dimmed with shame. Wren thought of Rita, standing alone at her delegation's table, proposing resolutions that no one would support. He thought of human technicians working through their weekends to keep stations running. He thought of human doctors traveling to distant worlds to save children they would never meet. "Neither can I," he admitted. The station lights flickered. Somewhere in the walls, another human-designed system began to fail. 30 cycles. That was how long the journey to Sol's system took without human-maintained jump gates. A trip that once required hours now demanded weeks of conventional travel through empty space. Ambassador Wren spent most of that time reading. The Council Vessel Reconciliation carried delegates from 12 species, diplomats chosen to negotiate humanity's return. They brought offers of trade rights, territorial concessions, and formal apologies drafted by committees who had never met a human. Wren had helped write some of those apologies. They felt hollow even to him. But the reading changed everything. Wren had requested access to human historical archives, records that humans had left behind in their abandoned embassies. He expected dry diplomatic correspondence. Instead, he found centuries of hope slowly crushed into silence. The first messages dated back to humanity's initial contact with the Council. Young species, eager species, reaching out with open hands. They offered everything. Their science, their medicine, their labor. They asked only to belong. The Council had accepted their offerings and rejected their requests. A human scientist named Dr. Yuki Tanaka had proposed a collaborative research station 70 cycles ago. Her proposal outlined shared facilities where species could work together, learning from each other. The council denied funding. Too expensive, they said. Let the humans build it themselves if they want it so badly. She built 3 stations, alone, with human resources and human labor. When other species used those stations, they never acknowledged who had made them possible. Ren read message after message. Human delegates requesting assistance with Earth's environmental damage. Damage caused partly by providing resources to council species. Denied. Human citizens applying for residential permits on council worlds. Applications rejected for cultural incompatibility. Human teachers offering to establish schools on developing planets, told their methods were too primitive to be useful. And through it all, humanity kept helping. They maintained the jump gates. They staffed the medical missions. They repaired the communication relays. They showed up, cycle after cycle, for species that could not be bothered to learn their names. The final message in the archive had been written by Delegate Rita. It was addressed to Earth's governing council, marked as her resignation letter. They do not see us as partners, they see us as tools. When the tool speaks, they grow annoyed. When the tool asks for oil, they laugh. I have spent 20 cycles trying to build bridges, and I have learned that some species do not want bridges. They want servants. I am tired. Perhaps silence is the only language they will understand. Ren closed the file and sat in darkness for a long time. The reconciliation gathered the delegation. In its main conference room on the 28th day of travel, 12 species represented: Vasari, Kelmathi, Drathan, Morvaki, and 8 others. They needed to prepare their approach. We demand their return, the Drathan delegate insisted. The council has rights. Humanity signed treaties. Treaties they fulfilled, Ren replied quietly. Every obligation met, they violated nothing by leaving. Then we offer compensation, territory in the outer systems, mining rights, whatever they want. A young Selari philosopher, one of the few species that had voted for human resolutions, spoke from the corner of the room. Has anyone asked why they left? Silence. We know why, the Morvaki delegate said. His lights flickered uncomfortably. Have we discussed it openly? Have we admitted our role? The Drathan delegate's scales rippled with irritation. What role? We accepted their help. Is that a crime? We accepted their help while rejecting their humanity. The Selari's voice remained calm. We treated them as useful animals. When an animal runs away, we do not blame the animal. Watch your words, philosopher. I have watched them for 30 cycles. I am tired of watching. Humanity did not abandon us. We pushed them until leaving was the only dignity left to them. The argument continued, but Ren stopped listening. He stared out the viewport at the approaching stars of Sol system, a single yellow sun orbited by 8 planets. Humanity's home, the place they had returned to when the galaxy proved too cold. On the 30th day, the reconciliation entered the outer boundary of Sol system. Sensor alerts screamed across every console. Human patrol vessels, hundreds of them, moved through the space between planets. Not attacking, not threatening, simply present. Their hulls gleamed with technology the Council had never seen. Weapons systems that could tear the reconciliation apart before its shields activated. Where had this come from? Humanity had been classified as a developing species, incapable of significant military advancement. That classification was 3 centuries old. No one had bothered to update it. A communication channel opened. A young human woman appeared on screen, uniformed, professional, utterly without warmth. Council vessel, you are entering Terran space. State your intentions. Ren stepped forward. We seek an audience with your leadership. We come to discuss. Reconciliation. The woman's expression did not change. Proceed to coordinates being transmitted. Do not deviate from the assigned path. You will be escorted. Human vessels flanked the reconciliation as it moved deeper into Sol system. Ren watched them through the viewport. Sleek, powerful, nothing like the humble transports humanity had once used in council space. They had hidden this, all of it. While serving the galaxy, they had been building something else. Ren wondered what else humanity had kept secret. He suspected he was about to find out. Earth was green. Ambassador Ren pressed against the viewport as the reconciliation descended toward humanity's homeworld. Council records described Earth as a damaged planet, polluted oceans, dying forests, atmosphere choked with industrial waste. Humans had begged for environmental assistance for generations. Those records were lies. From orbit, Ren saw vast forests covering continents, oceans that sparkled clean and blue, cities that blended into landscapes rather than scarring them. Whatever damage Earth had once suffered, humanity had healed it. Alone, the escort vessels guided them to an orbital station named Unity, a massive structure that dwarfed anything in Council space. Human civilians moved through its corridors without paying attention to the alien delegation. They were not hostile. They simply did not care. The Council had become irrelevant to their daily lives. A young officer named Captain Dawes met them at the docking bay. Director Okonkwo will receive you in Conference Chamber 7. Follow me. Ren tried to engage her in conversation during the walk. Your station is impressive. When was it constructed? 40 cycles ago. We had no records of such construction. You did not ask. The corridor walls displayed artwork, paintings, photographs, sculptures. Every piece showed humans helping others, a doctor treating a child, a farmer sharing food with strangers, a soldier carrying a wounded enemy to safety. A plaque beneath one image read, "Service freely given is sacred, service demanded is slavery." Conference Chamber 7 overlooked Earth. The planet filled the viewport, impossibly beautiful. Director Amara Okonkwo waited for them. She was an older woman with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. She wore simple clothing, no medals, no symbols of rank, just practical fabric in neutral colors. Welcome to Sol. System, she said. Her voice was warm but distant like sunlight through glass. Please sit. The delegates arranged themselves around a curved table. Ren noticed that human chairs had been replaced with accommodations for each species. Water tanks for the Vasari, heat lamps for the Drathan, darkness alcoves for the Morvaki. Someone had prepared carefully for this meeting. The Drathan delegate spoke first. Director Okonkwo, we come bearing gifts. The Galactic Council offers humanity a permanent seat on the Security Committee. Full trade rights in 7 sectors, mining claims on 16 mineral-rich moons. Director Okonkwo listened patiently. We also offer formal apologies for any perceived slights during humanity's membership. The Council recognizes that communication failures may have caused misunderstandings. Perceived slights, the director's expression did not change. Communication failures. We are prepared to discuss compensation for any specific grievances. Director Okonkwo folded her hands on the table. Tell me, what did the Council offer humanity before we left? The Drathan delegate hesitated. I do not understand the question. When our scientists requested collaborative research, what did you offer? When our citizens applied for residence, what did you offer? When our planet was dying and we begged for help, what did you offer? Silence filled the chamber. Nothing, Director Okonkwo answered her own question. You offered nothing, and now that we have nothing you need, you offer everything. Do you understand how that appears to us? Ambassador Ren spoke carefully. Director, we have read the archives. We know what was done. We cannot change the past, but we hope to build a different future. A future where humanity returns to maintaining your systems, staffing your hospitals, feeding your colonies. A future of partnership. The director smiled. It was not a happy expression. Ambassador, I am going to explain something. Humanity has spent 3 centuries serving the galaxy. We asked for nothing in return because we believed that was what good neighbors did. We thought that eventually the galaxy would see us as equals. We were wrong. No matter how much we gave, you saw us as servants, lesser beings who existed to make your lives easier. She stood and walked to the viewport. When we realized the truth, we had a choice. We could continue serving people who would never respect us, or we could leave. We chose to leave. We came home. We healed our world with the knowledge we had gained serving others. We built ships and stations and technologies that the Council never saw because you never thought to look. You assumed we were weak because we were kind. That was your mistake. The Drathan delegates shifted uncomfortably. And now, what do you want now? Director Okonkwo turned to face them. We want nothing from you. That is what you fail to understand. We are offering something to you. She touched a panel. Data streams filled the air, medical formulas, engineering specifications, agricultural techniques. Everything we know, every system we maintained, every cure we developed, all of it freely given with complete documentation. In exchange for what? Nothing. We will not implement any of it. We will not send technicians or doctors or engineers. You will have to learn. You will have to build your own expertise. You will have to become capable of surviving without us. The Morvaki delegates' lights flickered with confusion. Why? Why help us at all after everything we did? Director Okonkwo's smile softened. Because that is who we are. We cannot watch others suffer, even those who hurt us. But we will no longer destroy ourselves for people who see our compassion as weakness. We will help you learn. We will not learn for you. Ren understood. This was not revenge. It was something far more difficult. It was a lesson. Chief Engineer Borek had never cried before. Kelmathi did not cry. Their species expressed distress through energy fluctuations, not liquid. But after 73 failed attempts to repair Relay Station 14, Borek felt something wet on his face. He had been staring at a human technical manual for 6 hours. The words made sense individually. Together, they described a process that his finest engineers could not replicate. Somewhere in the documentation, there was a step they kept missing, a concept so obvious to humans that they had not bothered to explain it. Human children learned this procedure in basic schooling. Borek could not master it after 3 months of study. But on the 74th attempt, something clicked. Borek's assistant, the same young Kelmathi who had failed beside him 73 times, suddenly understood the diagram. The biological computing matrix, she whispered. It responds to intention, not just input. We have been treating it like a machine. It is closer to a living thing. They tried again. This time they did not just enter commands. They communicated. They asked the system what it needed. Relay Station 14 came back online. The celebration lasted 30 seconds. One station repaired, thousands still broken, but it was a beginning. Across the galaxy, similar breakthroughs emerged through similar pain. On Voss Prime, Ambassador Ren watched his world transform. The human plague treatment had arrived in the data packages, complete formulas, manufacturing processes, everything needed. What the packages did not include was the specialized equipment humans had designed to produce the compounds. Vasari scientists had to build that equipment from scratch. They failed repeatedly. The first batch of medicine killed more patients than it saved. Dosage calibrations were wrong. The second batch was contaminated by impurities their filtration systems could not catch. The third batch worked barely on 1 in 10 patients. 20,000 Vasari died while their doctors learned. But by the 6th month, the treatment success rate reached 90%. Vasari scientists had not just replicated human medicine, they had adapted it, improved it, made it their own. Drathan farmers experienced similar evolution. The first season without human agricultural support produced almost nothing. Famine spread. Rationing became mandatory. But Drathan scientists began experimenting with human genetic modification techniques, combining them with native plants that had survived on their harsh world for millions of years. The second harvest was small but sustainable. The third was larger. By the fourth season, Drathan agriculture no longer depended on human modifications at all. They had created something new, something entirely Drathan. Ambassador Wren spent his evenings reading human history. He wanted to understand why humanity had chosen this path, why they offered help while refusing to provide it directly. He found his answer in Earth's own past. Centuries ago, powerful human nations had conquered weaker ones. They built dependencies, economies that could not function without foreign control, governments that collapsed without outside support. When the powerful nations eventually withdrew, chaos followed. Generations suffered because they had never learned to stand alone. Humans called this colonialism. They considered it one of their greatest sins. And they had recognized the pattern when the Galactic Council repeated it. The Council had not conquered anyone. They had simply allowed humanity to do everything difficult. The result was the same, dependency so deep that removal caused catastrophe. Humanity had broken that cycle the only way they knew worked, forcing self-sufficiency through withdrawal. Wren proposed a resolution to the Council. A formal historical review, he explained to the assembled delegates. We acknowledge humanity's contributions, every system they built, every life they saved, every sacrifice they made without recognition. We document the 831 resolutions we rejected. We admit what we did. The Drathan delegates scoffed. What purpose does that serve? Will acknowledgement repair our relay stations? No, but it will prove we have learned. Humanity offered us knowledge because that is their nature. They will not return until we prove we deserve partnership. This is the first step. And if they still refuse, then at least we will have told the truth. The vote was contentious. Older delegates resisted admitting fault. Younger ones pushed for transparency, species that had suffered most. The Vasari, the Drathan, the Kelmathi split down generational lines. The resolution passed by 3 votes. Wren wrote the official acknowledgement himself. He spent weeks drafting, revising, ensuring every word was accurate. He listed human contributions that no council record had ever recognized. He named human volunteers who had died serving other species. He admitted in plain language that the council had exploited human generosity while offering nothing in return. The transmission broadcast across all frequencies. Every species in council space received it. So did Sol's system. Wren did not expect a response. Director Okonkwo sent one anyway. It was brief, a single paragraph. We have received your acknowledgement. Words cannot undo centuries of harm, but they can begin healing. Continue learning. Continue growing. When you no longer need us, perhaps we can be friends. Captain Dawes delivered the message personally, appearing on Wren's communication screen without warning. The director asked me to tell you something unofficial, she said. Her expression had softened slightly. She said that apologies matter less than change. Keep changing. The screen went dark. Wren sat alone in his office on Voss Prime. Outside, his people were recovering. The plague had been contained. The death toll had stabilized. Vasari doctors now trained other Vasari, building expertise that would outlast any individual. It had cost so much. So many lives lost because the council had refused to learn when learning was easy. But they were learning now. Wren hoped it would be enough.